Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it?
We are so glad you're here for this one because we're looking at a rapidly closing window today.
Yeah, imagine staring up at a 245 million year old, 5-story tall granite boulder, and it's just resting on sand that is scientifically whiter than anything you're going to find in Bali.
Right.
You're looking out at the shallow, hyper-clear turquoise sea in the late afternoon sun. You just finished a fresh, line-caught seafood dinner that cost you exactly $3.
Which is just wild to even think about.
Exactly. And as you look down the entire stretch of this pristine coastline, you realize you are literally the only foreigner on the beach.
Yeah.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into an island where the clock on this exact reality just started counting down.
It really did. When people talk about finding, an untouched paradise, they usually assume it requires this punishing journey. Like
Multiple puddle jumpers.
Right. Multiple puddle jumpers, overnight ferries, just massive logistical headaches. But the destination sitting on the table today shatters that assumption, mostly because of a massive shift in aviation routing that literally just occurred.
So we are heading into the Java Sea to unpack Belitung Island, Indonesia. We're going to map out the entire landscape for you. The hook here, the reason this deep dive is so urgent, is that Belitung just secured its first international flight in 5 years.
Yep. First one in half a decade.
And we are going to show you how you can experience this absolute geological anomaly for $40 a day, all in. But you're sitting at the absolute tipping point right before mass tourism fundamentally alters the local economy.
I mean, it is the defining travel secret in Southeast Asia right now. But secrets with international airport access, they just don't stay secret for long.
They really don't. So we're going to outline every single piece of the puzzle you need to navigate this window. We'll cover the logistics of getting there, whether your origin point is Sydney, London, Toronto, or Auckland.
We'll break down the whole accommodation spectrum, too.
Right, scaling from an $8 a night local homestay all the way up to a $90 beachfront bungalow. We'll explore the day-to-day ground game, so the culinary scene, boat rentals, the island hopping mechanics.
And we really need to highlight the exact best time to visit, which is May through September.
Yeah.
And we'll explain the meteorological reasons why the November through February window will just completely ruin your trip.
Completely. And we'll rigorously define the target audience, because an underdeveloped island, no matter how beautiful, has structural limitations that just make it incompatible with certain types of travelers.
Definitely.
We're filtering this deep dive for budget travelers, digital nomads trying to keep their monthly burn rate under like $1,200, and couples searching for Maldives-grade visuals on a backpacker budget.
But conversely, we're going to flag exactly who needs to stay away.
Exactly.
So luxury travelers, remote workers dependent on high-speed connectivity, and families traveling with very young children.
Yeah, to give you a preview of where we'll land by the end of this analysis for the backpacker, Belitung is a near-perfect anomaly. For the mid-range traveler, it's a massive win, provided you plan around the weather.
Right, weather is key.
For families, it comes with serious conditions. For the luxury demographic, the infrastructure simply isn't there yet. And for the digital nomad, the budget is a dream, but the internet bandwidth is a complete nightmare.
Okay, let's unpack this.
So to understand why this is happening right now, we kind of have to look under the hood of destination economics. Belitung Island is the most underpriced beach destination in Southeast Asia in 2026.
Hands down.
But the ticking clock on that pricing anomaly officially started on May 3, 2026. That is the exact date Scoot Airlines launched a twice-weekly direct flight from Singapore Changi directly into Belitung's HAS Hananjoadan Airport.
And if you're listening to this on a commute in London or Sydney right now, you might be rolling your eyes, right? Thinking, sure, another hidden gem that will be totally ruined by the time I get there.
Oh, yeah, the classic cynical traveler take. Exactly. But here's the mathematical reality of the Indonesian flight network. That Scoot flight is the first international service to land on the island in 5 years. When you remove international flight access for half a decade, a destination effectively goes into a cryogenic freeze.
Right. Prices revert to domestic baselines. The infrastructure just stops expanding.
Which means the Indonesian government and the airlines, they didn't open this route by accident. It's algorithmic.
Right. If you analyze the back-end metrics, Google Trends data for the search term Belitung Island has been surging aggressively from 2024 straight through the beginning of 2026. Airlines track these demand signals.
They know exactly what they're doing.
Oh, absolutely. Furthermore, the Indonesian government actively campaigned for, and they just recently secured, a UNESCO Geopark designation for Belitung.
I want to pause on that Geopark designation for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because people often misunderstand what that means. A UNESCO designation isn't just like a plaque they bolt to a rock.
No, not at all.
It is a highly engineered premium marketing narrative. It elevates a location from being just a nice beach where you can get a tan to a globally recognized site of ancient natural significance. It immediately attracts a higher tier of international attention.
Exactly. The underlying strategy from Indonesian tourism officials is incredibly transparent here. They recognize the Belitung has this flawless, untouched aesthetic. They want to capture the foreign exchange earnings that come with international arrivals right now.
While it's still pristine.
Right. Utilizing the current pristine state of the island before the heavy machinery arrives for the next massive development cycle. They're selling the untouched narrative before it ceases to be true.
Let's bring this down to the actual wallet impact, because the headline numbers and the source material, I mean, they literally stopped me in my tracks.
They are shocking.
When we say a full day all in, we're talking about your guest house room, 3 solid meals, hiring a motorbike or splitting shared transport, and spending your afternoon on the beach. That entire 24-hour cycle is going to cost you between $25 and $45 US.
It forces you to recalibrate your entire baseline for travel costs.
It really does.
And the value becomes even more extreme when you factor in the island's primary draw, which is island hopping out to the outer archipelago. This includes spots like Belitung Island, which features a 100-year-old Dutch lighthouse you can actually climb.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you book an organized full-day boat tour out to these islands, the going rate is $26 US per person.
But the truly wild part is the independent option. You can walk down to Tanjung Kelayang Pier, which is the main staging area, and simply negotiate with a local fisherman to take his boat out. That private hire will cost you around $28 US.
And wait,
That is not an hourly rate. That is $28 for the entire boat.
that is unbelievable. And you're getting a visual landscape that rivals some of the most expensive coastlines on Earth. We mentioned Tanjung Tinggi Beach, which carries massive cultural weight domestically.
Right, because of the movie.
Exactly. It was the primary filming location for a 2008 Indonesian blockbuster movie called Laskar Pelangi. The sand composition there is measurably, scientifically whiter and finer than the volcanic sands you find on mainland Bali.
But you know, the sand isn't the headline, it's the granite boulders. I was looking at the geological reports in our sources, and these formations are 245 million years old. They're scattered across the white sand and out into the shallows, and some of them reach up to 5 stories tall.
It's massive.
It genuinely looks like the set of a Jurassic Park movie.
The contrast is just jarring. You have these monolithic, ancient gray boulders cutting through incredibly vibrant, shallow turquoise water. It creates a topographical drama that you simply do not find on standard tropical islands.
So I'm looking at these numbers and my alarm bells are ringing. In my experience, a $40 a day island in 2026 either means the water is dangerously polluted, the local community is hostile to tourists, or there's some massive catch I'm just not seeing. Why hasn't international capital already flooded in to build a row of mega resorts?
Well, the capital hasn't flowed yet because capital follows proven logistical pathways.
Okay.
And that 5-year flight gap severed that pathway entirely.
Okay, that makes sense.
So the catch is not that the island is flawed. The catch is the temporal nature of the opportunity. You are standing on a fault line. Right now, there are no mega resorts. There are no hawkers aggressively pushing cheap sunglasses on you while you try to read a book on the sand. But if we connect this to the broader mechanics of tourism history, we have to look at the precedents set by Nusa Penida.
Ah, the gentrification mechanics of island tourism.
Precisely. Look at the timeline of Nusa Penida, the island just off the coast of Bali. Between 2018 and 2022, it went from being this adventurous, relatively quiet, budget-friendly alternative to mainland Bali to becoming fundamentally swamped by day trippers and influencers.
Right.
The infrastructure buckled under the demand, and as a direct result, the cost of visiting doubled in less than 4 years. That is the exact trajectory Belitung is locked into right now. As those twice-weekly scoot flights inevitably fill up, local operators and hoteliers will realize they hold pricing power.
The boutique hotels will reprice their oceanfront rooms. The tiny, family-run orangs will print new menus with English translations and double the cost of a plate of fish. That $28 private boat hire will quietly become $50, then $80. The clock is running.
It's the life cycle of every hidden gem. So the urgency isn't a marketing tactic, it is an economic reality. You must act now to experience the $25 a day version of this island.
Okay, so since the timer is counting down, we need to locate exactly where on the map we're dropping you. And more importantly, we need to discuss the meteorology that will dictate when you should pull the trigger on a flight.
Let's do it.
Geographically, Belitung sits in the Java Sea, just off the southeastern coast of the massive island of Sumatra. If you visualize the flight paths, it's a very short hour-and-a-half hop southeast from Singapore, or a quick 45-minute flight due north from Jakarta.
It's a substantial landmass, too, covering roughly 4,800 square kilometers.
Mm-hmm.
The administrative capital is Tanjung Pandan, situated on the west coast. The broader province, which lumps Belitung together with the neighboring island of Bangka, supports a population of around 1.4 million people.
Wow, okay.
But understanding the geographic coordinates is honestly less important than understanding the destination's specific identity.
Because travelers hear Indonesian island, and their brains automatically autofill the blanks with their own desires. They expect a one-size-fits-all tropical buffet.
Right, and Belitung is fiercely specialized. It is not a jungle destination. If you're looking to strap on hiking boots and trek through dense, humid rainforests looking for orangutans, you need to go to Sumatra or Borneo.
Yeah, skip the tune.
Furthermore, it is absolutely not a surfing destination. The surrounding bathymetry and reef structures do not produce the massive, rolling pipeline waves you find in places like Uluwatu. Belitung's identity is singular. It's a granite boulder, white sand, shallow water, island-hopping destination.
And the crowd dynamics are entirely shaped by that identity and, the historical lack of flights. By the standards of Southeast Asia, the crowds are incredibly low. The people you'll encounter are predominantly Indonesian domestic tourists flying in from Jakarta or Bandung.
Right, the domestic market.
They know the island purely because of the cultural impact of that Laskar Pelangi movie we talked about, but the international footprint has been practically non-existent.
Exactly. The pricing anomaly, that $25 to $45 a day reality, only exists because Western tourists, by and large, refuse to. The underwater visibility for snorkeling hits its annual peak, and you're looking at consistent daytime temperatures ranging comfortably between 27 and 32 degrees Celsius.
Now, if we slice that dry season up even further, June through August is the peak period for domestic Indonesian holidays. So if you travel during those core summer months, you'll need to book your accommodation at least a week or two in advance.
Yep.
But if you want to thread the needle perfectly, look at May or September. You're catching the edges of the dry season, so the weather holds up, but the domestic crowds have largely cleared out.
Which brings us to the danger zone.
Yes.
You must actively avoid the period from November through February. This is when the northwest monsoon hits the island. The atmospheric pressure changes, the wind patterns reverse, and the sea state deteriorates rapidly.
It gets really rough.
Violently rough.
Yeah.
And because the local tourism economy relies on small wooden vessels, the harbor master will frequently suspend all boat routes out to Lengkuas Island and the surrounding formations for days at a time.
You also get slammed with sudden, unannounced torrential rain that can last for consecutive days. The monsoon is so disruptive that many of the smaller, family-run guest houses on the coast just board up their windows and cease operations entirely until the spring.
And this is exactly where the algorithmic booking platforms create a massive illusion of value for budget travelers.
Oh, the discount trap.
Yeah.
People see a peak season homestay that usually costs $18 drop to $10 in November. They see a $65 beachfront bungalow slashed to $40. They think they're outsmarting the system.
It is an absolute false economy. If you look at the raw numbers, saving $5 to $20 a night seems like a win, but the experience variance is catastrophic.
It really is. Booking Belitung in November to save $10 a night is like buying a heavily discounted front row ticket to a rock concert. But when you arrive, the stadium is empty and the band refuses to play.
Great analogy.
The entire value proposition of Belitung is the physical access to the offshore granite formations and the turquoise water. If the sea state prevents the boats from leaving the pier, you're stripped of the destination's primary function. You are just marooned in a hotel room watching it rain on a gray beach.
The cost of being stranded far outweighs the marginal savings on the room rate. You are paying for access.
Okay, let's assume you follow the data. You book a flight in the middle of July. You bypass the monsoon. The plane descends, the wheels hit the tarmac. What does the first hour on Belitung actually feel like?
Well, the arrival experience at HAS Hanajoden Airport immediately signals what kind of island you're on.
Hmm.
The facility is small, highly functional, and completely devoid of the sensory overload you find at major hubs.
So no giant crowds.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
manages a steady trickle of domestic flights from Jakarta and Batam, and now it absorbs the twice-weekly Scoot arrivals.
What stands out is the silence. There is no chaotic, shouting mob in the arrival hall. You aren't running a gauntlet of aggressive taxi touts physically grabbing at your luggage.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. And because Indonesia offers a 30-day tourism visa exemption for a massive list of passports, you largely bypass the miserable hour-long visa on arrival queues that plague places like Bali. You grab your bag from a very small carousel and you walk out the front door.
But the moment you step through those automatic doors, you confront the island's primary logistical hurdle. There is absolutely no public bus network on Belitung.
Wow. Okay.
The mass transit infrastructure just does not exist.
This is where you have to take control of your own ground game. Let's break down the transit costs so you aren't guessing. If your hotel is in the main administrative town of Tanjung Pandan, which is about a 15-minute drive from the airport, you can grab a taxi or an ojek, which is a motorcycle taxi, for about $4 to $6.
However, the vast majority of international visitors are not staying in the town. They're heading straight to the northern beach corridor, specifically the area around Tanjung Keliang.
Right.
This is the staging ground for the boats and the epicenter of the granite boulders. A standard taxi run up to that northern coast is going to cost between $10 and $14.
If you're arriving with a lot of luggage or you just want to completely engineer the friction out of your first day, the smartest move is to pre-negotiate a full-day car with driver starting right from the airport. That will cost between $25 and $35.
Which is really reasonable.
Totally. The driver meets you, takes you to your hotel to drop your bags, and then you have a dedicated vehicle for the rest of the afternoon to go buy groceries, scout the beaches, and get your bearings. If you prefer total independence, renting a motorbike once you settle into your guest house is exceptionally cheap, costing just $6 to $8 for a full 24 hours.
And once that initial transit puzzle is solved and you finally walk out onto the sand at Tanjung Keliang or Tanjung Tinggi, the physical impact of the environment just takes over.
It's a problem of scale. When you look at the photos online in the source material, your brain assumes the boulders are maybe the size of a large car. But then you stand next to one and you realize it is literally the size of a 5-story apartment block.
Disorienting.
The visual math doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
And they aren't just sitting uniformly in a row on the sand, they're chaotic. They form these massive natural tidal pools, narrow swim-throughs, and towering archways right in the shallow water.
The geological age of the granite, 245 million years, creates a profound sense of permanence. And the way the environment interacts with the physics of light is fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
The water is incredibly shallow, and because the sand is so blindingly white, the light reflects upward, causing the turquoise color of the sea to shift in intensity hour by hour based on the angle of the sun.
Arriving at the beach around 4 in the afternoon is a cinematic experience. The golden hour light hits those massive western-facing boulders, casting these long, dramatic shadows across the white sand. And again, the beauty is heavily reliant on what is absent. You're staring at this ancient, monolithic landscape, and there are no jet skis ripping through the bay and destroying the quiet. There are no massive, ugly wooden platforms constructed purely for tourists to take selfies.
Right, none of that.
There's no heavy machinery pouring concrete in the background. It's just you and ancient geology.
That kind of uncorrupted spatial scale is just incredibly rare.
So you've taken in the massive boulders, the sun has gone down, and now you need a shower and a bed. Since we established the transport to the coast, where are you actually sleeping? We need to deconstruct the 4 distinct tiers of accommodation available on the island right now.
The foundational layer of Belitung's tourism economy is the budget or backpacker tier. We're looking at a nightly rate of $8 to $18.
This tier is almost entirely composed of local homestays, and it's where the sociological fabric of the island really shines. For instance, you have places like Belitung Homestay Backpacker down in the main town, which runs about $8 to $12 a night. Yeah, for that $12, you're getting a clean private room, a ceiling fan, a shared bathroom down the hall, and the family will usually make you a basic local breakfast.
If you push slightly up the coast to be closer to the boat departures, a place like Pak Mai Homestay near Tanjung Keliang will cost between $10 and $15 a night.
Mm-hmm.
The premium you're paying there is purely for proximity. You can literally walk from your bed to the pier in the morning.
Now, if you're paying $10 a night, you have to align your expectations with reality. You are not getting air conditioning, you're relying on cross breeze and a fan. The wifey is going to be incredibly temperamental.
To put it mildly.
Yeah, you will likely be taking cold showers, which, frankly, after sweating in 30-degree heat all day is a relief. But the hidden asset you're buying at this tier is the host family. In these local communities, the hosts act as your personal fixers. They'll negotiate your boat hire, explain the island logistics, and integrate you into the local rhythm in a way a front desk clerk never could.
Scaling up, we move to the mid-range tier, which operates between $30 and $65 a night. The architecture of this tier is highly specific to the current moment. Much of this inventory's small boutique hotels and upgraded guest houses was constructed between 2022 and 2025.
So the concrete is barely dry.
Basically, yeah. They built these places specifically because they knew the international flight routes were eventually returning. For your $50, you're getting modern air conditioning, a private ensuite bathroom, reliable hot water, a breakfast service, and off-peak Wi-Fi that actually functions.
That sounds solid.
And if you're spending at the top end of that bracket, say $65 during the July peak, you're getting a room right on the beachfront. If you come in the shoulder season of May or September, that exact same beachfront room drops to $30 or $50.
The next step up is the upper mid-range tier, priced between $65 and $95 a night. Here, you transition from guest houses to locally owned beachfront bungalows. You get a private terrace, more square footage, and a significantly higher aesthetic finish. And I really need to hammer home the comparative economics here. If you took the exact visual package of this $90 Belitung bungalow, the blinding white sand, the hyper-clear water, the private terrace, and you airlifted it into the Maldives or the Seychelles...
Oh, forget about it.
Exactly. The market rate would immediately jump to $400 or $500 a night. You're buying a Maldives-grade environment at a 3-star regional price point.
That is undeniably true, but we have to inject some realism about the operational friction at this $65 to $95 level. You are paying a premium for the geographical location, not for bulletproof infrastructure.
Oh, yeah.
The island's power grid still suffers from occasional outages. When every guest returns to their bungalow at 7 p.m. and logs onto the Wi-Fi, the bandwidth will collapse. And because these properties are run by independent local operators rather than heavily standardized corporate management companies, the maintenance quality can vary wildly.
Right.
One bungalow might be pristine, and the one next door might have a leaking AC unit.
Which brings us to the ceiling, the luxury tier, running from $90 to $160 a night.
It is critical to define what luxury means in the context of a tipping point destination. In 2026, there are absolutely no 5-star international hospitality chains on Belitung. There is no Four Seasons. There is no Aman Resort. The heavy corporate capital has not arrived.
If you step off the Scoot flight expecting an air-conditioned Mercedes to whisk you to a lobby where someone hands you a cold towel and drives you in a golf cart to a massive infinity pool, you are fundamentally in the wrong place.
What $90 to $160 buys you here is a premium beachfront villa constructed by a boutique independent operator. The luxury is entirely defined by isolation.
Oh, okay, I see.
You get private access to a stunning stretch of beach, a highly attentive personal host, and elaborate home-cooked seafood dinners served on your terrace. You are paying for a degree of total exclusivity that is financially impossible to secure in developed markets like Phuket or Bali, simply because on Belitung there is virtually no one else on the beach to compete with you.
Okay, you've checked into your room. Whether it's a $12 homestay or a $150 villa, your bags are down and you are hungry. Let's explore the culinary landscape. How does a remote Indonesian island feed itself, and what does it feed to you?
The culinary identity of Belitung is built heavily on 2 pillars: marine resources and agriculture. Specifically, the island is heavily dependent on white pepper, known locally as lada putih.
Right.
Belitung is a massive agricultural player in this highly specific market, producing roughly 30,000 tons of white pepper annually.
The scale of that production is wild for an island of this size, and it completely dictates the flavor profile. Because it is the dominant local crop, they don't treat it like a precious spice to be used sparingly. It's a foundational ingredient.
Yeah.
It is heavily integrated into almost every savory dish, giving the food this distinct, earthy, aromatic heat that differs from the chili heavy profiles you find elsewhere in Indonesia.
And this agricultural base creates a fascinating economic shield for the traveler.
I know exactly what you're going to say, the currency moment.
Yes.
Every traveler who goes to an emerging destination experiences this. You sit down at a local spot, you order a massive meal, you ask for the bill, and when you see the number, your brain stutters. You frantically do the mental conversion because you assume you misunderstood the price or the waiter forgot to charge you for something.
On Belitung, that moment happens daily at the local warungs. A warung is a small family-owned food stall or cafe. If you walk into one and order a massive plate of fresh, line-caught fish that was grilled over charcoal, served with a mountain of rice and a side of local vegetables, the bill will be between 30,000 and 50,000 Indonesian rupiah.
Which, when you run the conversion, is roughly $1.80 to $3.10 US.
That's incredible.
Under $3.50 for a complete, fresh seafood dinner. And the underlying economics of why it is this cheap is fascinating. The warungs are entirely calibrated to the local domestic economy. The fishermen are selling their catch to feed the agricultural workers and the local community. Because international tourism hasn't flooded the zone yet, there is no artificial tourist menu markup.
The agrarian foundation of the island means the local economy isn't desperately reliant on extracting maximum margin from foreign visitors. The price you pay is simply the mathematical reality of what the fisherman and the cook require to maintain their livelihood in their local context.
Let's run through some other staples so people know the baseline. If you want a bowl of mie belising, which is this incredible local noodle soup featuring a rich broth, fresh prawns, and tofu that will cost between $1.50 and $2.50.
So cheap.
If you're walking down the beach and you want a fresh coconut hacked open, you are handing over 60 cents to $1. If you're overheating and want an iced Teller, a highly refreshing shaved ice dessert with fruit and coconut milk, that is 80 cents to $1.20.
Even if you completely bypass the local warungs and opt for a tourist-facing seafood restaurant where you are sitting at a proper table with printed menus and table service, the absolute ceiling for a massive seafood feast is about $8 to $15 per person.
Wow.
And your morning coffee and fresh pastries from a local bakery will only set you back around $1.50 to $2.50.
What about the logistics of just buying a bottle of water or a snack? Where do you go when there are no mega supermarkets?
The retail infrastructure is dominated by two massive Indonesian convenience store chains, Indomaret and Alfamart. They are ubiquitous in Tanjung Pandan town. A large 1.5-liter bottle of water costs 30 to 40 cents. A pack of instant noodles is a quarter.
Good to know.
But you must understand that Western-style massive grocery stores simply do not exist here. If you want fresh fruit or produce to take back to your homestay, you must go to the Pasar Tanjung Pandan, the traditional wet market.
Stepping into that traditional market or sitting down at a local warung requires an understanding of the social contract. We have to cover the etiquette because you're stepping into a highly specific cultural environment.
The social fabric of Belitung is predominantly Muslim, and the culture is distinctly conservative.
Which means the rules of engagement are different than they are in a hyper-touristy enclave like Seminyak in Bali. While it is perfectly acceptable to wear standard swimwear when you are physically on the beach or on a boat, the moment you transition away from the sand, if you're walking down a road, entering a convenience store, or sitting at a warung, modesty is mandatory.
Absolutely.
You need to throw on a t-shirt or a sarong. You must cover your shoulders and your knees. It's just a baseline demonstration of respect for the community hosting you.
You also need to adjust your internal clock to accommodate local religious practices. Friday midday prayers are a central pillar of the week. You'll find that many local businesses, shops, and even some warungs will temporarily shut their doors during this period. You just have to plan your lunch or your shopping around it.
We also need to address the financial etiquette. When a meal costs $2, the Western instinct is either to tip heavily or, conversely, to treat everything like a massive negotiation.
Tipping is not culturally ingrained or expected at the local warungs. If you are eating at a slightly higher-end tourist restaurant, the standard practice is simply to round the bill up to the nearest 10,000 rupiah.
Okay.
As for bargaining, it is entirely acceptable and expected when you are negotiating the daily rate for a private boat at the pier or haggling over souvenirs at a market.
But the golden rule is that you never ever bargain for food. Haggling over a $2 plate of grilled fish is deeply offensive. The margins for these families are already razor thin, and the price they quote is the honest local rate. Pay what is asked.
Let's synthesize all these microtransactions. We have the room rates, the transport, the warung meals, and the boat hire. What does the actual blended daily burn rate look like for a traveler on Belitung?
We will break this down by the 4 economic profiles, starting with the backpacker budget. We calculate the absolute floor to be 25 to 40 US dollars a day total.
Incredible.
The math works like this. You allocate $10 to $15 for your homestay, which includes breakfast. You budget $6 to $9 for food, assuming you eat 3 meals a day at local Warrings. You spend $6 to $8 renting a motorbike for mobility. And you allocate $3 to $8 a day for activities.
To clarify that activity number, because the boat tour itself is $26,
Right.
you are not taking a boat tour every single day. The primary activity on Belitung is exploring the massive granite beaches, which is entirely free. If you pay $26 for a boat tour once every 4 days, your amortized daily activity cost drops to around $6.
This $25 to $40 a day figure is what I call the unicorn number. Finding a geopolitically stable, visually staggering island with incredibly cheap logistics and zero mass tourism for under $40 a day in 2026 is almost impossible. It is the core financial argument for going immediately.
Moving up to the mid-range daily budget, we calculate an expenditure of 65 to 95 US dollars a day. In this bracket, you allocate $40 to $65 for an air-conditioned room in the beachfront corridor.
Nice.
You bump your food budget to $15 to $20, allowing you to seamlessly mix cheap Warrun lunches with proper seafood restaurant dinners. Transport takes up $10 to $14, maybe splitting a taxi or a driver for half a day. And you allocate $15 to $20 a day for activities, giving you the freedom to rent gear or join a tour whenever you feel like it.
At $95 a day, the financial anxiety completely vanishes. You aren't checking your banking app. You are just saying yes to whatever you want to do. But what if you want to push the destination to its absolute luxury limit, the high or premium budget?
At the absolute top end of the market, you are looking at a burn rate of 120 to 180 US dollars a day.
Okay, wow.
This covers an $80 to $120 premium beachfront villa. $25 to $35 for food means you are ordering the most expensive seafood platters available, plus fresh juices and whatever else you want. You dedicate $20 to $30 to have a private driver on standby all day, and you spend another $20 to $30 to essentially hire your own private boat whenever the mood strikes you.
$180 a day for the absolute premium experience. If you tried to execute a premium itinerary in mid-range Bali, you would burn through that $180 before dinner.
Oh, easily.
On Belitung, it buys you total operational freedom in a hyper-exclusive environment.
The financial scaling is incredibly favorable across all traditional vacation tiers. But we must address a very specific and growing demographic, the digital nomad. If you are staying for an entire month, the calculus shifts entirely. We estimate the monthly digital nomad burn rate to sit comfortably between $900 to $1,300 US dollars.
$1,000 a month to live on a tropical island. The breakdown is incredibly seductive. $200 to $350 for a long-term guest house negotiation. Less than $300 to eat out constantly. $100 to rent a scooter for the entire month, and a couple hundred left over for weekend boat trips.
It sounds amazing.
The visa situation is easy, with the 30-day exemption plus simple extensions. It sounds like a remote worker's absolute fantasy.
It is a financial fantasy, but an operational nightmare. We have to introduce a massive caveat here.
Right.
If you are looking at that budget and packing your laptop, you need to understand that mobile data is your only lifeline.
Uh-oh.
You can purchase an Indonesian SIM card from providers like Telkomsel or XL Axiata, yielding 20 to 30 gigabytes of data for about $6 to $10. You must buy this because the guest house Wi-Fi on Belitung is a structural failure.
We aren't talking about pages loading slowly. We are talking about functional uselessness. If your employment requires you to upload large graphic files, or, crucially, if you have to sit on live video calls, if you're trying to run a Zoom meeting with a client in London from a homestay in Tanjung Kaleang, the bandwidth will collapse. Your video will freeze, the audio will drop, and you will not be able to do your job.
Exactly. The fiber optic infrastructure required to support a dense population of heavy bandwidth users simply has not been laid yet. So the final verdict for the digital nomad is brutally split.
Yeah.
If your work is entirely asynchronous, if you're a novelist writing offline, or a coder who just pushes small text files to GitHub once a day, the budget makes it a massive win.
Yeah.
But if your income relies on real-time video connectivity, Belitung will destroy your workflow.
The budgets are undeniably spectacular, but a budget is only a theoretical model until it hits reality. And the source material highlights three specific, named logistical traps that consistently destroy those budgets for first-time visitors.
Right, let's get into these.
Let's dissect these so you don't fall into them. Trap number 1, the no-boat day trap, also known as the monsoon booking trap.
We touched on the meteorology earlier, but let's look at the mechanics of how this trap is triggered by booking algorithms. A traveler sitting in North America searches for flights in late November or December. The algorithm spits out incredibly cheap flight prices, and the hotel aggregators show beachfront rooms at absolute rock-bottom rates.
That's tempting.
The traveler books it, assuming they're getting a steal, and they arrive expecting to take photographs of giant boulders from a wooden boat.
They wake up on day 1, and the reality of the weather crushes them.
The physical reality is that the wave heights and the wind shear off the coast of Tanjung Kiliang during the monsoon season surpass the safety tolerances of the small wooden fishing boats. The local harbor master, who controls the maritime traffic, will literally close the port and suspend all routes to the outer islands.
It is a physical barricade. You cannot leave the main island. You end up sitting in your guest house for 3 days of a 7-day trip, watching horizontal rain whip across the beach, waiting for a weather window that is mathematically unlikely to open.
It's brutal.
Yes, you can walk on the main beaches, but the entire archipelago, the Lengkuas lighthouse, the massive offshore rock formations, the coral reefs, is completely cut off from you.
You've paid international airfare to be trapped indoors. The mitigation strategy is absolute. Only travel between May and September. If your schedule forces you to travel during the fringe of the monsoon season, you must aggressively build redundancy into your itinerary.
2 extra days minimum.
Exactly. Add at least 2 extra contingency days just for sitting out bad weather. Use advanced meteorological apps like windy.com starting 3 days out to monitor wave heights. And a critical logistical rule, never ever book your departure flight off the island for the morning immediately following your planned boat tour. If the boat is delayed a day, you miss your flight.
That is such a good tip. Trap number 2, the transport assumption trap.
This trap is fueled by the modern traveler's reliance on app-based infrastructure. We have been conditioned to believe that no matter where we land on Earth, we can simply open our phone, tap a button on Uber or Grab, and a car will magically appear. Or we can walk out to a highly regulated, metered taxi rank. Travelers land at Belitung expecting that exact seamless ecosystem.
And the reality hits them the moment they walk out of the terminal. Grab and Gojek do technically possess a license to operate in the main town of Tanjung Pandan, but the fleet size is microscopic and their service is incredibly patchy.
Very patchy.
More importantly, those app drivers are rarely, if ever, waiting out at the airport, especially if your scoot flight lands at an odd hour.
Right.
So you walk out, your app says no cars available, and you are suddenly facing a loose coalition of informal drivers who know exactly how trapped you are.
This is where the price gouging occurs. An informal driver will look at a disoriented tourist and quote, 25 to 35 US dollars just for the basic transfer up to the Tanjung Kaliang beaches. If you remember our budget breakdown, the fair market rate for that exact run is $10 to $14. Furthermore, this trap extends to the daily logistics. People assume they can just walk out of their hotel and stroll down the sand from one beach to the next. They quickly discover the beaches are separated by massive headlands and long stretches of road.
You end up physically isolated at your hotel, forced to pay inflated taxi rates every single time you want to go to a restaurant or see a new beach. The fix for this is incredibly simple, but it requires proactivity.
Prearrange it.
Prearrange your airport pickup with your homestay or hotel before you even board your flight in your home country. Almost all of them will send a driver for a flat, guaranteed rate of $10 to $15. It completely removes the stress of negotiation upon arrival.
Such a relief.
Alternatively, the second you drop your bags at your guest house, demand to rent a motorbike for the week. Spending $6 a day on your own wheels instantly neutralizes the transport trap and gives you total autonomy.
Which brings us to trap number 3, which is by far the most financially destructive. The scoot connection trap.
This one is brutal because it exploits the exact people who think they are great at booking cheap flights. Let's trace a hypothetical traveler. You live in London and you want to go to Belitung. You open Skyscanner. The algorithm sees that Scoot now flies to Belitung from Singapore.
Right.
So it routes you on a long-haul flight from London Heathrow into Singapore Changi, and then auto-connects you onto the Scoot flight to Belitung. It looks like a beautifully efficient 2-leg journey. You click buy.
But the algorithm didn't check the weekly frequency, and the traveler didn't look at the layover duration. The mechanical reality of that new scoot route is that, as of May 2026, it only operates twice a week, specifically on Tuesdays and Saturdays.
So our traveler from London lands in Singapore on a Wednesday afternoon. They walk to the transfer desk, vibrating with excitement for their cheap island holiday, only to discover their connecting flight doesn't leave for 3 days. They are suddenly forced into an involuntary multi-day layover.
And they are forced to execute that layover in Singapore, which consistently ranks as one of the most expensive cities on the planet.
Ouch.
By the time they pay for 3 nights in a Singaporean hotel, pay for transport, and eat meals for 3 days, they have added a minimum of $150 to $400 US to their trip overhead.
The logistics of a cheap sports car. You buy the car for a massive discount, but then you realize it only runs on a rare imported fuel that costs 10 times the normal price. The logistics entirely wipe out the savings?
Exactly.
The fix here is critical for anyone flying long haul. You must only route yourself through the Singapore hub if your long haul arrival and departure dates perfectly, cleanly align with that Tuesday or Saturday Scoot connection window. If they do not align perfectly, abandon the Singapore strategy entirely.
Just use Jakarta.
Instead, route your long-haul flight into Jakarta. Jakarta operates multiple daily, highly reliable domestic flights into Belitung for roughly $28 to $55 one way. Using Jakarta as your hub provides complete scheduling flexibility and completely insulates you from the Singapore tax.
It perfectly illustrates how an unexamined logistical assumption can destroy the financial viability of an entire trip.
We've locked down the budgets, we've bypassed the traps, and we know exactly how to get there. Now we need to talk about the physical and emotional reality of existing on the island. We need to evaluate safety, the viability of solo travel, and the cold, hard realities of physical comfort.
When we analyze the general safety landscape of Belitung, the data is overwhelmingly positive. The risk profile for violent crime or targeted theft against tourists is incredibly low. There is no endemic street crime problem.
That's great to hear.
The island lacks the seedy red light districts that generate friction in other hubs. And crucially, it lacks the aggressive, alcohol-driven party culture that frequently leads to late-night violence or accidents in heavily trafficked zones, like Phuket or Kuta Beach.
The social fabric is defined by a conservative, predominantly Muslim culture. The byproduct of that conservatism is a very calm, orderly, and respectful public environment,
which heavily influences the calculus for solo travelers. For solo female travelers specifically, Belitung is widely categorized as one of the safer island environments in the Indonesian archipelago.
because of the homestays, right?
Because the budget accommodation sector is heavily reliant on homestays, solo travelers are essentially lodging within the protective framework of local families. These families are deeply embedded in their communities, and they have a massive reputational and economic stake in ensuring their guests are safe, respected, and well treated.
You aren't just an anonymous room number in a massive concrete block. You are a guest in someone's community. In fact, reading through the source material, the only real safety caution flagged for solo travelers has absolutely nothing to do with crime.
Right.
It's an environmental hazard. The beaches are completely unlit at night. If you decide to go for a romantic midnight stroll, you are navigating uneven sand, hidden tidal pools, and massive, jagged granite rocks in pitch blackness. The primary danger to a solo traveler on Belitung is twisting an ankle because you didn't bring a flashlight.
However, when we shift the focus to family travel, the safety calculus becomes significantly more complicated.
The environment presents a mixed bag for parents. On the
Yeah.
positive side, if you travel during the dry season, the beaches along the northern corridor have a very gradual, shallow entry into the water, and they are largely free of the vicious rip currents that plague the southern coasts of Bali. It is calm, highly swimmable water.
But the critical failure point for families is the absolute absence of public safety infrastructure. There are no lifeguards stationed on these beaches. There are no color-coded flags indicating safe swimming zones or hidden drop-offs. If a child gets into trouble, you are entirely on your own. Furthermore, the signature activity, the boat tour, is conducted on traditional wooden fishing vessels.
Oh, man.
These boats do not have rigid shade canopies, they do not conduct mandatory safety briefings, and they certainly do not carry high-end, perfectly fitted life jackets for infants.
You have to visualize the reality of taking a toddler on a 3-hour open ocean ride on a wooden plank in the full intensity of the Indonesian sun. It is not a relaxing family excursion. It is a serious physical endurance test. They will be exposed, hot, and miserable.
This lack of infrastructure naturally leads to a serious warning regarding medical care. If that child gets severe heat stroke, or if you slip on a granite boulder and suffer a serious laceration, the local medical capacity is severely constrained.
That's scary.
The district hospital in Tanjung Pandan operates at a very basic level. They possess the capability to stabilize a patient, but they are not equipped for complex trauma surgery or critical care. For any serious, life-threatening medical emergency, the only realistic pathway to survival is a spiralized medical evacuation flight to superior facilities in Batam or Singapore.
Which means arriving on Belitung without comprehensive travel insurance, specifically a policy that explicitly covers emergency medical evacuation, is an unacceptable risk. It is strictly non-negotiable. Do not gamble with your health on an island with limited medical hardware.
To pivot to a less dire but still annoying friction point, the day-to-day transaction safety. As we established, there are no organized systemic scam rings targeting tourists. The only minor friction you will encounter involves the boat operators at the pier.
Right.
Occasionally, a fisherman will quote a price, say $30, and let the tourist assume it is a per-person price rather than a per-boat price, pocketing the massive difference when a group of 4 hands over $120. The mitigation is simple. Always look them in the eye and clarify, is this price for the whole boat? Before you shake hands.
Let's transition into the emotional arc of the journey. We're going to look at the highlight reel, the moments that validate all the logistical effort and balance them against the cold, honest disappointments you need to mentally prepare for. Let's start with the aha moments.
The pinnacle experience, the sequence that defines Belitung, is the outer island circuit at 7 a.m. You pay your $28, you hire a private boat from the Tanjung Keliang Pier, and you instruct the captain to head out into the Java Sea early, deliberately beating the arrival of the domestic day trippers from Jakarta.
The light at 7 a.m. is crisp, the air is cool, and you're cutting across glass-flat turquoise water heading toward places like Pulau Babi or Pulau Keliang.
And it is only when you approach these islands from the water level, sitting low in a wooden boat, that the true, staggering scale of the granite boulders registers. You are looking up at millions of years of geological history towering over you. It is a profoundly humbling, visually confronting experience that makes you feel incredibly small in the best possible way.
Then you navigate over to Lengku's Island for the lighthouse experience. You pull up to this tiny speck of sand that is completely dominated by a massive iron lighthouse constructed by the Dutch colonial administration in 1882. It is a piece of 19th century maritime history just sitting in the tropics.
It's so cool.
And the best part, it is fully functional, and you can climb all the way to the top tier for free. You step out onto the metal balcony, and you have a 360-degree aerial view of the granite archipelago resting in the turquoise sea. It is the undisputed centerpiece photograph of the entire trip. Plus, when you walk back down, the snorkeling directly off the beach offers 5-meter visibility during the dry season, featuring highly active marine life and remarkably healthy coral structures.
And to close out the highlight reel, you have the sunset at Tanjung Tinggi. This is the famous Lasker Pelangi Beach. If you position yourself there between 4 and 5 in the afternoon, during the peak of golden hour, you can physically climb up onto the massive granite slabs that retain the heat of the day.
That sounds perfect.
You sit on a warm boulder, elevated above the water, and watch the sun drop directly into the Java Sea. It is a flawless, deeply moving, natural spectacle, and the only money you need to spend is handing $1 to the warung owner for a fresh coconut.
Those are the soaring highs. But we promised a ruthless, honest deep dive. What are the honest disappointments? What is going to genuinely frustrate people who arrive with the wrong expectations?
The first and most jarring reality check is the nightlife, or, more accurately, the total and complete absence of it. When the clock strikes 9 p.m, the entire island effectively powers down and goes to sleep.
Complete silence.
There are no trendy beach clubs with beanbags and fire dancers on the sand. There are no live reggae bands playing covers until 2 in the morning. There are no late-night food carts operating on the corners.
Now, for a certain demographic, myself included, that silence is a massive feature. It is why you go. But if your internal calculus for a tropical holiday includes evening socializing, meeting other backpackers over buckets of beer, or dancing, Belitung is going to feel suffocatingly quiet and oscillating after dinner. You must calibrate your expectations to a 9 p.m. bedtime.
The second major disappointment is the connectivity nightmare we analyzed earlier regarding the digital nomads. It bears repeating because it impacts everyone. It's not just the guesthouse Wi-Fi that fails.
Right.
Even if you purchase a premium 4G mobile SIM card, the cellular infrastructure is highly concentrated. The moment you leave the urban center of Tanjung Pandan and travel north to the pristine beach corridors, your 4G signal will frequently degrade to 3G or drop out entirely.
So frustrating.
If your psychological comfort relies on instantly uploading high-definition videos to social media or constantly texting friends back home, the sheer friction of the network will drive you insane.
And the third major disappointment centers on the physical infrastructure gaps. We highly recommended renting a scooter for $6 a day, which is brilliant in the daylight. But the road network connecting the various northern beach zones is highly inconsistent.
Very.
You will encounter stretches of road that are completely unpaved, riddled with potholes, and turn to mud after a brief shower. Attempting to navigate an unpaved, potholed dirt road on a scooter in the pitch black after dinner is a genuinely stressful and dangerous undertaking.
Furthermore, the financial infrastructure is equally centralized. The ATMs are heavily concentrated almost exclusively in Tanjung Pandan town. If you travel up to the northern beaches relying on a debit card, you will hit a wall. Very few homestays and absolutely zero local warungs possess credit card readers. Cash is the absolute undisputed king on Belitung, and if you run out of physical rupiah while at the beach, you are facing a 30-minute drive back to town just to buy lunch.
So, if you are listening to this and your internal monologue is saying, I can't deal with the lack of Wi-Fi, I hate unpaved roads, and I need at least one beach bar, then Belitung is a hard pass for you.
Fair enough.
But if you still want that beautiful exotic island vibe, what are the alternatives? Where else can you go? And how does the financial math compare?
Let's evaluate Alternative 1. Nusa Penida, located right off the coast of mainland Bali. Nusa Penida is the most direct visual and geological competitor to Belitung in the region. It offers that same massive dramatic interplay between sheer limestone rock cliffs and deep blue ocean. It is globally famous for Kelingking Beach, which features the iconic headland shaped like a T-Rex extending into the sea.
The pros for Nusa Penida are undeniable. The visual drama is world-class, and it is highly accessible via a short, fast boat ride from Bali, meaning you don't have to deal with complex flight routing.
But the cons are severe, and they are entirely driven by the mass tourism that Belitung currently lacks.
Yeah.
The cost is significantly inflated. A standard mid-range room on Nusa Penida in 2026 will cost between $55 and $90 a night, compared to Belitung's $30 to $65. Your blended daily out-of-pocket budget will easily double, jumping to $80 to $120.
But the money isn't even the worst part. It's the physical crowding. The severity of the crowds on Nusa Penida during the peak July and August season cannot be adequately described. It has to be survived.
Survived is the right word.
Fast boats arrive from Sanur and Padang by every 30 minutes, mechanically dumping thousands of day trippers onto the island. The narrow, broken roads are clogged with a massive traffic jam of vans. When you finally reach the viewpoint at Kingling Beach, you are not experiencing nature. You are standing in a literal queue, a long, sweaty line of hundreds of people just waiting for your 30-second turn to stand at the edge and take a photo. When you compare the two, Belitung wins the value and serenity metrics by a landslide.
Let's look at Alternative 2, Tioman Island, located off the east coast of Malaysia. Tioman occupies a very similar psychological space to Belitung.
Yeah.
It matches that exact quiet island, low infrastructure, dense jungle meeting the sea profile.
Right.
The daily financial budgets are incredibly comparable, running roughly $50 to $85 a day. It is an exceptionally strong budget option.
And Tioman possesses a massive structural advantage when it comes to the underwater environment. It is situated inside a heavily protected Malaysian marine park. The coral density, the biodiversity of the marine life, and the sheer variety of technical dive sites completely outclass anything Belitung has to offer. If you are a certified scuba diver looking for world-class reef systems, Tioman is the superior choice.
However, above the waterline, Tioman simply lacks the sheer jaw-dropping geological scale of Belitung. Tioman is beautiful, heavily forested, and steep, but it does not have 245-million-year-old, 5-story granite boulders resting on blinding white sand.
So the decision matrix for the alternatives is highly binary. If your primary objective is scuba diving and marine biodiversity, book a ticket to Tioman. If your primary objective is landscape photography, geological scale, and experiencing a truly bizarre, ancient coastal environment, Belitung is the winner.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. We have unpacked the flight algorithms, the local agricultural economics, the meteorological traps, and the competitor islands. So what does this massive stack of data mean for you, the listener?
It is time to run Belitung through the Is It Worth It matrix. We're going to process this destination through 5 distinct traveler profiles and deliver the final, unfiltered verdicts. Let's start with the backpacker.
For the backpacker, the verdict is a resounding, immediate yes. At a blended daily cost of $25 to $40 all in, Belitung represents arguably the single best value proposition currently existing in Southeast Asia.
That's a strong statement.
It's true. The homestay network is deeply welcoming, the local warung food is exceptional and cheap, and the signature $26 boat tour remains priced for the domestic Indonesian market rather than inflated for foreign wallets.
But we have to reiterate the ticking clock. You cannot put this on a 5-year bucket list. You need to act within the next 12 to 24-month window before the international repricing driven by the scoot flights fundamentally alters the market. Go now, solve the motorbike rental on day 1 to avoid the transport trap, and you will have an elite, hyper-budget trip.
Profile 2, the mid-range traveler. The verdict here is yes, but it comes with one absolute non-negotiable condition.
For $65 to $95 a day, the mid-range traveler is extracting unbelievable value. You are getting an air-conditioned room right on a pristine beach, eating high-quality seafood, and hiring private boats on a whim. That combination of price, privacy, and visual excellence is mathematically impossible to secure in heavily commodified markets like the Maldives or Thailand right now.
But the condition is absolute. You must execute this trip during the dry season, from May to September.
Do not ignore this.
I cannot overstate this. If you attempt to save $20 a night by booking a mid-range trip in November, and the monsoon systematically washes out your boat access to the outer islands, you are not getting a great deal. You are simply funding an expensive, disappointing, rain-soaked week indoors. If you respect the weather data, it is a massive yes.
Profile 3, the family. I have to say, looking at the safety data, my instinct is to warn families away. But what is the official verdict?
The official verdict is conditional. It relies entirely on the age and physical resilience of your children. If you are traveling with children who are age 8 and above, who are strong, confident swimmers in open water, and who have the physical stamina to endure 3 hours on a vibrating wooden boat with zero shade, then yes.
Right.
The boulders and the tidal pools create an incredible, natural, unstructured playground.
But I will draw a hard line here. It is an absolute NO if you are traveling with toddlers or children under 6. The infrastructure will actively fight you. There are no shallow, chlorinated resort pools. There are no kids clubs to give you a break. There are no lifeguards.
Sounds exhausting.
It is. And the sheer logistical friction of navigating a cash-only economy, constantly organizing private drivers because there are no footpaths, and managing the heat exposure on the boats will make parenting highly stressful. Do not bring a toddler to Belitung expecting a relaxing, turnkey resort holiday.
Profile 4. The luxury traveler. The verdict is a definitive not yet.
The reality is that Belitung in 2026 simply lacks the hardware and the software to satisfy the luxury demographic. There are no international 5-star management chains. There is no curated, multi-course fine dining scene with massive wine lists.
You'd be disappointed.
You can certainly pay $160 a night for a premium boutique bungalow and secure an incredibly exclusive, isolated beach experience, but you will inevitably suffer from systemic operational inconsistencies. The local power grid will flicker, the Wi-Fi will crash, the service standards will be highly informal.
If your definition of a holiday requires a guaranteed, bulletproof standard of flawless execution, Belitung will deeply frustrate you. The play for the luxury traveler is to wait. Put Belitung on your radar for the 2028 to 2030 development cycle, when the heavy capital infrastructure finally catches up to the new flight routes.
Finally, Profile 5, the digital nomad. The verdict is brutally split. Budget, yes. Connectivity, no.
The financial spreadsheets for a nomad are spectacular. The visa bureaucracy is minimal, and generating a highly comfortable lifestyle for $900 to $1,300 a month is a massive win in the current global economy.
But the technological infrastructure will actively sabotage your career. If you are a purely offline writer or a coder who works entirely asynchronously and never needs to appear on a live video call, you can absolutely hack it.
Yes, exactly.
But if you have mandatory Zoom meetings with clients or a boss who expects you to be instantly reachable, Belitung will fail you. You are far better off absorbing the higher living costs in established nomad hubs like Canggu in Bali or Chiang Mai in Thailand, where the fiber optic infrastructure actually works.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to pose a final, broader thought about the mechanics of tourism history. As a culture, we are obsessed with nostalgia. We endlessly talk about places before they were famous.
Well, all the time.
We romanticize what Bali was like in the 1980s, or what Tulum was in the 1990s, or even how quiet Nusa Penida was just 5 years ago.
Hmm.
We are addicted to the idea of being the first ones to discover a place.
But we are terrible at recognizing that exact moment when we are actually standing in it. We only see the tipping point in the rearview mirror.
Exactly. By analyzing the data on Belitung Island right now, starting from that inaugural Scoot flight in May 2026, you are currently holding a highly specific, fleeting 24-month snapshot in time. You are staring directly at the precipice. When we discuss handing a fisherman $26 for a boat tour out to a pristine 245 million-year-old archipelago, we have to pause and ask ourselves a larger question. Are we simply buying a cheap vacation, or are we actively participating in the exact tipping point mechanism that will permanently and irreversibly change a local economy? It is a complex reality to explore the next time you see a hidden gem go viral on your feed. You're not just an observer, you are part of the mechanism.
If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.